This is Kanzenshuu, the podcast, episode 366 for the week of July 20th, 2014. What up, heyo's? Welcome to Kanzenshuu,
the podcast.
That's right, an extension of the all-encompassing Dragon Ball fan site,
Kanzenshuu.
We cover anything and everything. It is literally everything right now. Dragon Ball in hopes of enlightening and a little bit of entertaining. My name is Mike VegettoEX. Happy to have back on the show slightly more regularly, it feels like now, Mr. Herms, Jake himself. Hello, sir.
Hello.
How are things out in the warm lands of the Pacific Ocean?
It's actually pretty rainy lately.
Is it? Oh.
I guess that's to be expected, actually.
Things have been busy, though?
Yeah, fairly busy. Off and on.
I know Julian was happy to unload a little bit of translation work to you. Was that like a week or so ago?
Yeah, so I think it was last week.
I guess let's just run down that real quick. It was a new content edition. The full color manga. It's weird. I say it's come to a close. The digital edition has been out for a while, and then Shueisha was going through and releasing what I guess we can call the Z portion of the Dragon Ball manga, if you want to go with the Viz delineation there, up through the end of the Majin Buu arc, which was split into 6 parts. We got 1 through 3 and then 4 through 6. Part 3 of the Buu arc had a little bit of Q&A stuff, and it feels like they saved all the juicy details for 4, 5, 6, and took us a little bit, but we got to it, and we got not a ton of new key information, but some.
Yeah, I don't think they talked about key at all.
I have to imagine they mentioned it somewhere. It's got to be in there somewhere. But I guess the Mr. Satan's wife was kind of the biggest bombshell.
Very controversial for reasons I don't fully appreciate.
Yeah, I think people are getting too wrapped up in gender role discussions and not the actual information itself. What was the tidbit here about Mr. Satan's wife?
So it turns out, according to Toriyama, that Mr. Satan's wife was named Miguel, which, as more than a few people have pointed out, is traditionally a man's name. But anyway, the joke here is it derives from the name of the Archangel Michael from the Bible, which literally means who is like God.
Right.
So, as Toriyama points out, when they got married, people said, oh, it's like the devil and an angel getting married.
And that's it. That's the joke.
That's the whole thing. So, yeah, a lot of people have been kind of, I guess upset is the right word, that Toriyama has used a traditionally, but not exclusively, male name for Mr. Satan's wife. And on the forums, I know Cold Skin over in France pointed out that in France, there's actually a female variant spelling. Mm-hmm. Which, I don't know, in retrospect, maybe we could have used that, but I don't think it's that big of an issue, frankly.
No, I mean, this is something that I know you like to bring up so often, is Dragon Ball, we're in a position where we know too much, and we take for granted all the strangeness in the series. And if you were a new fan coming into it, the strangeness of a deceased wife named Miguel is not all that strange when compared to some of the other stuff that happens.
I guess I should also point out that Toriyama doesn't specifically say that this is Videl's mother. He just says it's Mr. Satan's wife.
That's true. I mean, we're inferring there, but...
Yes. Since it's a man's name, maybe there's something about Mr. Satan we don't know.
I don't know. I think you're reading into it a little too much there.
Maybe a tiny bit.
Probably. But other stuff, new information, it was just, I think the most interesting one there was BBD split off Babidi, kind of similar to Namekian regeneration, or at least Piccolo Daimao in a way.
Yeah, they use the same word, Bunshin doppelganger, to describe... Toriyama does, to describe Babidi in relation to Bibidi. Mm-hmm. He says, rather than being a child, he's more like a doppelganger because Bibidi had the magical power to split up into multiple versions of himself whenever there was anything that would be kind of difficult for one of him to do. Mm-hmm. Almost, the thing this reminds me of more than anything is actually the brooms in the Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Oh, okay, yeah.
For some reason. It's not a direct parallel, but I guess the magic... analog,
sure.
Anyway, so, and then Toriyama says, whenever he did this, it would weaken his magical power in proportion, which also brings up Tenshinhan's ability to split into 4 versions of himself, where it said he did that, but it would make him a 4th weaker. And then Toriyama says, well, now that Bibbidi's dead, Bobbidi has like the full extent of the magical powers for himself now.
So he is the one.
Yes, it's the Jet Li movie.
That was kind of it for really interesting information in there. A lot of recap stuff and...
Yeah, literally they seem to be recycling Toriyama comments from previous interviews.
Yeah, I mean, they went into the Shinjin and the Makaioshin again. It kind of feels word for word, or at least paraphrase from 2009.
Yeah, I haven't checked, so I don't know if Toriyama's repeating himself or if they're literally just recycling quotes from previous books without really noting that that's what they're doing.
Yeah, it did feel like an overwhelming review plus new tidbit. Which is funny because, as we've mentioned on one of my previous appearances, some of the new tidbits don't quite fit with the old tidbits, so seeing them referenced back to back is kind of funny looking. Right. Now we're back to the Makaioshin versus all the other explanations. All right, so you can check that out on the sites and the translation sections, probably still on the homepage of the website, if not page 2 by now. The full color Majin Buu arc volumes 4 through 6 Q&As, most of the answers from Toriyama, but some of the early stuff there is usually just Shueisha answering their own questions. And I know you said let's add in Toriyama where it's him answering to be a little more explicit, so we did that. That's that. Well, Jake, while you are here with me, we have a pretty wonderful podcast that is a combination information/shilling episode. We don't get to do those too often.
No, we need more shilling is what I've always said.
Is that what you've always said about us? We need more shilling? I didn't know this.
Always.
Okay, so we are going to pull ourselves out of a little bit of a slump here. I already made the joke. Other people made the joke. It's not that funny. I just feel like Toriyama is like acknowledging your joke is so terrible. You say it anyway.
It's a flawless plan.
It is. So Dr. Slump is on tap this episode. Jake, we have talked about Dr. Slump in the past, a little bit of the kind of more explicit references where it's, hey, they're crossing over. Who are these characters? But we're going to dig a little deeper. And this is almost a reflection on Dr. Slump in terms of, is Toriyama repeating ideas from Dr. Slump? Did he draw inspiration from some prior stuff? And I just did a crash course review on some of the things that I had not actually read before. I've owned the whole thing for a while, but I'd only really read about half of it before. So a lot of the stuff toward the end was like, oh my God, mind blowing to go and look at some of this stuff. So that's our topic this episode. And we of course have news. Jake, did you hear there's a new movie coming?
Oh, is there?
Yeah. You ready for this?
Sure.
I don't think any of us are fully prepared. So let's talk about news. There's some other news this week. I mean, there's Xenoverse, his hair can go gold. Looks like JM6 will have a new thing for Broly and Dragon Ball Heroes. None of that even matters right now because a new movie for Dragon Ball has been announced for 2015. We had a record scratch insert last week. It's the kind of thing where we had just finished recording and hours after that is when the news comes out. So, Jake, the initial announcement came from this month's issue of V-Jump. It is the September issue of V-Jump. There have been other announcements since then. I know Weekly Jump was having something in there. Various websites had some reveals as well. We had a translation here of the comments from Toriyama. We're actually getting kind of lengthy comments up front. I wasn't expecting that. Usually we get a couple sentences about him looking forward to it, and then we get expansion on that later on. What'd you think about that?
Well, I remember from the last movie, they had this fairly lengthy quote from him that, if I recall correctly, we first only got a relatively small excerpt from it.
Right.
And yeah, so maybe this time they're not even bothering. They're just releasing the full quote right off the bat.
Yeah, it may also be the depth of his involvement this time around, where he's kind of responsible for a lot of the stuff. So you may as well go to the source here. I guess I will go ahead and read the translation here of Toriyama's initial spiel, and then we'll get into all the nitty gritty, what we have learned since then. So Toriyama says, as with the last movie, I thought up the new story for the next Dragon Ball theatrical movie as though it were a continuation of the manga when it was still in serialization. Just the fact that I don't have to draw anything means I can obsess completely over the smallest bits of dialogue. Well, the truth is that I wasn't planning on going that far, since it's pretty exhausting at my age, but I got a little carried away. This time will of course be a continuation of the previous Battle of Gods, but I've deliberately increased the amount of action scenes by a good deal. With regard to the contents, they told me, keep it a secret, like they're all high and mighty, so I can't touch on it just yet, but it should be super duper interesting. The fact that I'd say that when I'm not big on the flashy action stuff means there's no doubt about it. Even my first editor, Toriyama, who rarely ever praises me, said, "This is good." Absolutely no doubt about it. Although it won't be any good if I say that too loudly and people end up disappointed by it. But at the very least, I'm confident that the contents are something that the fans will be able to thoroughly enjoy. Right now, I'm drawing the design illustrations for the new character, or characters, plural, Japanese, and such. The movie's completion is still a ways out in the future, but please look forward to it. Now, Jake, there was that initial kind of misconstruing there about Toriyama writing it.
Yeah, it's not that, I believe Anime News Network's first report on it said that it was an idea he had back during the manga's serialization, but as we saw, he just says that he's trying to picture, like, he's pretending that it were back in the olden days and he's still doing the manga to help him think up a new story. It is not an idea that he had all the, like, 20 years ago and is only now just putting into this movie. It's something he's newly thinking up as if it were, as if he were still doing the manga. So, yeah.
Anything else you want to pull out from Toriyama's comments here? I think the Torishima one is something a lot of people have flashed onto. It's like, oh man, is old editor theirs approving? That's a good sign, right?
Yeah, it's like, we don't really care if Toriyama likes the new movie, but Torishima, he's hard to impress.
Right.
I mean, this is literally, I guess we're going to get into Torishima later on. But so yeah, his first editor, whose catchphrase more or less was rejected. Because he was infamous for just rejecting all of Toriyama's initial ideas and throughout Dr. Slump and the first portion of Dragon Ball. And as we've discussed also on previous podcasts, Toriyama's editors have a fairly big influence on the direction of the series, just in shaping Toriyama's plot ideas. And also, Torishima is the one who, even when he was no longer Toriyama's editor, he called him up to express his displeasure with the initial android designs.
Right, which I know we've talked about a lot lately.
And the rest is his, the thing that led to 19 and 20 not being the actual villains, and then the introduction of 17 and 18 and all that jazz.
Anything else there? It sounds like classic Toriyama, where he's, I got super into it and I don't have to draw anything. That's awesome. And I didn't mean to do all this work, but I did anyway. That sounds very similar to Battle of Gods.
Yeah. He's very enthusiastic when he doesn't have to do all the work.
Right, exactly.
And, okay, I guess, as you mentioned, there's the thing he said back in February about potentially making Vegeta the main character.
Yeah, why don't we talk about that? The quote, I don't have it right in front of me, but the gist of it was, if I were to do another movie or be involved with another movie, wouldn't it be neat if perhaps Vegeta could possibly be the main character of the movie? But I don't have anything planned right now. And we still don't know if that's the case.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously we now know that there is indeed a new movie, but that doesn't necessarily mean that his initial, like the thing he threw out there kind of almost on a whim about making Vegeta the main character, like that, there's no real reason to think that's going to hold. I mean, it might, but don't get your hopes up, Vegeta fans.
Right. I mean, it could go either way. We really have nothing to go on. I know a lot of people said, oh, well, the first picture was of Goku, so I guess that's not it. It's a Dragon Ball movie. Of course the first picture is going to be Goku.
Yeah, I mean, and he's teleporting, and who knows if that's going to be significant or not.
Right. It could be nothing. Well, I guess that brings us to some of the next bits of information, and that's where we got the tagline for the new movie. And I know there was, again, more problems with translations here. The final one that we decided on was, "The whole universe has been waiting. A godly dimension of battle begins." Now, can you tell us what was going on with a little bit of the wordplay there?
Yes. So the important thing to note about that tagline is that the subject is battle.
Okay.
And the word battle, so it says a battle begins. So the word battle is being modified by this word godly dimension. So the tagline, it's not talking about a dimension, it's talking about...
The battle is being described. It's not a location of a godly dimension. It's, no, the thing that you were equating it to, or maybe some other folks were in Battle of Gods, where they're saying, man, this battle is just like on a whole different plane. That doesn't mean that they're fighting in an alternate dimension. It just means it's so extraordinary that it's, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's like saying they're taking it to the next level.
Right.
There's no actual level that they're taking it to.
They're not actually like stepping up into the air, and then, I mean, they did fight in the air, but yeah.
Apart from that, there's the bit of wordplay where it's God dimension, which is a homophone for new dimension, which is typically the kind of stock phrase you'd see, like a new dimension.
Mm-hmm.
But because, so the interesting thing there is that, so they use God, which does imply that this movie will also be about gods, maybe, but not, it could just also just be a godly level metaphorically in that way too. But it's one of those things where with Dragon Ball, we have literal gods walking around. So when something's described as godly, it's potentially more significant than if it were another series. Anyway, so that's that.
That's kind of it. All right. So we got that. That was, and again, you noted that the picture of Goku there using his teleportation and he's got kind of a smirk on his face. That's it. That's all we got there. So then the next thing was when Toei opened their official website for the movie. I thought this was interesting because people dug up the DragonBall2015.com domain and eventually that got locked down to a coming soon page and it had all the right information, tagline and everything. But then they ended up opening what seems to be the real website at D2015GW.com. The GW is for Golden Week, which we knew about as well from VJump, which is when this movie will debut. Jake, just real quick, what is Golden Week in Japan?
Everyone gets a week off and they're very happy.
That accurately sums it up. That's fine. So when this website popped up, we did not get that same tagline. We actually had something new, different, and pretty ominous and exciting at the same time. A picture of Shenlong, and the Japanese text alongside says, "The worst wish in history. That is the beginning of despair."
So certainly sounds a bit dark and foreboding, but at the same time, with the last movie, we got like that initial trailer which also made the movie seem like it was going to be a bit more dark than it ended up being. So again, I don't know how much we can go by these early images. I guess we should say like Sai-Aku. So it's usually used for like it means the worst, but literally you break it down, it means the most evil. So probably they're not talking about someone just making like a stupid wish. So at the very least, it does seem to be like there's going to be an evil wish, but we don't really know what that means.
Oh, we know there will be a wish involved. That seems to be for certain so far.
Yeah, and as I think Chukita on the forums, she went and looked up all previous instances of the word Zetsubo being used in Dragon Ball. Zetsubo, hopeless despair.
Yeah.
And so I think 90% of them are used in relation to future Trunks' future.
Yep, that sounds about right. I mean, that doesn't mean anything, but
it doesn't mean it's going to be about future Trunks' future, but that's the kind of atmosphere that this word is going for.
Yeah, just oh no, this is so awful. So, all right. I guess that brings us to what is probably the most recent bit of information, and hopefully we don't get anything else so I don't have to record an insert tomorrow morning. And that is Tadayoshi Yamamuro is going to be the director of the movie. This is kind of crazy.
I have to admit, I have not much understanding of the full significance of this.
Well, the thing is, he's not a director. That's probably what's the head scratcher here. Yamamuro, he's my number 3 guy. If you go down the list of Maeda to Nakatsuru to Yamamuro, responsible for so much promotional art and animation supervision. He's a really important figure with Dragon Ball, but he's not really a director. So to see him step up into that role is kind of curious.
He's the guy who did the initial designs for Super Saiyan God.
That's correct.
The ones that Toriyama rather pointedly rejected and came up with his own stuff for.
Right, he's a character designer by trade as well as a supervisor, so that's what we're used to him doing, is coming up with the ideas and overseeing the implementation of these things, the animation side, not necessarily this, you think of a director, you think kind of like guiding the story and assisting in like a larger role, and to think back to Yamamuro's, just the character designs being rejected, to now be at, I'll call it a higher level, working kind of alongside Toriyama there, because if Toriyama's the one coming up with all this stuff, maybe it's a case where Toriyama's good with it and then he says, okay, now go use my stuff. I'm good with whatever you do once I'm good with my stuff, maybe?
So he's literally never directed anything before?
I don't know.
That is actually kind of, interesting at the least.
I mean, at least in terms of Dragon Ball, I mean, we have now listed him as movie director because he will be working on the upcoming movie. But character designer, animation supervisor, key animation artist, and chief supervisor.
Well, everyone's got to start somewhere.
That's true. So Maybe he did direct something at one point and I'm totally missing it and I'm talking out my bum, but I think that is the situation right now.
I mean, maybe I'm putting too much faith in Toei, but I have to assume that they wouldn't make him the director of this movie if they didn't think he had some capacity to direct well.
Oh, at the same time, you think you're giving Toei too much credit for their own good.
We'll see, I guess.
All right. I think that's where we stand. We have a new Dragon Ball movie coming out Golden Week 2015. It starts all over again. Hooray. We're not going to sleep for another year. With that said, man, let's take it over to our topic. Now, Jake, this topic, again, don't listen to a word we say. We're doing this in the interest exclusively of selling you a DVD box set, so you can ignore everything we say unless you're interested in it. Discotek is putting out the first Dr. Slump movie set, first of hopefully more. It covers movies 1 through 5. Jake, why would we be talking about that right here on the show?
Well, because a certain Mr. Ashura on the forums, he contacted me. He works at Discotek.
Well, he works as a video game guy, and he does like freelance stuff.
So his daytime job is video game design, and then on the side, he does the cover designs for Discotek as well. And so he was working on this Dr. Slump set, and they actually had all of these subtitles done, but he wanted someone who knew about Dr. Slump to come in and look them over just to make sure that they weren't completely horrible. And so he contacted me, and I basically came and gave the subtitles a look through and rewrote a bunch of stuff for various reasons. So the big important part of all this is that I managed to get the name Kanzenshuu on the back cover of this DVD.
You sure did. Tell us a little bit about some of the work that went in there. Like, what were some of the things that you smoothed out, that you changed entirely?
So, like, one of the things is that in the second movie, there's this little scene. Oh god, it's incredibly difficult to explain, but
Dr. Slump makes no sense. Yeah. I know.
It's an it's an in-joke. It's a scene that they reuse from the actual main series.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's an in-joke and pun, and it, like, the original translator didn't understand it quite naturally. Like, they had no real way of knowing what the hell anybody was talking about. So the subtitles didn't really make any sense, and so I had to change them so that still doesn't really make sense, but it makes sense in the way it's supposed to not make sense.
Okay, sure.
Okay, so in more concrete terms, like there's a character in the last movie whose name's a pun on nasubi, the Japanese word for eggplant. Mm-hmm. And so the spelling they went with didn't really reflect that, so I changed the spelling so that it's more obvious.
Okay, so kind of like a tell less situation?
Yeah, basically. Just basically stuff like that.
I mean, we'll all get around to watching it, and I'm sure once you watch it, you'll be like, oh yeah, I did that.
Yeah.
So we are here to promote that by talking about Dr. Slump, not really talking about the contents of those movies. I mean, we may address things here and there, but we're primarily talking about the original manga series. Now, Jake, like I said, we have talked about Dr. Slump before. We did basically a primer episode where we introduced you to the main cast, specifically as it related to the Red Ribbon Army arc in Dragon Ball, where we do have a rather significant crossover, and Arale really helps Goku in his fight there, specifically against Blue. Thank you. I don't know why I blanked on that there. So what we wanted to talk about here was some of the stuff that Toriyama basically ripped wholesale from himself. I mean, we've seen so much of this later on as it relates to ripping things from Dragon Ball, or just general Toriyama-isms, so to speak. But there's a couple examples here where it's like, really? You already did that pretty much exactly as is in Dragon Ball. And again, we know too much about Dragon Ball. A lot of people don't know enough about Dr. Slump. So it's kind of like primer number 2 here. And the nice thing is that Viz has translated the entirety of the Dr. Slump manga, and some of it was out of print for a while. I believe all of the print volumes are back in print, and it's available digitally as well. I can't speak to the overall translation, but it reads pretty well. I can tell when they tried to smooth some stuff over, but overall it's a good read. So we're going to go down a little bit of list items and just mind-blowing examples here.
Yes. So the most probably major example overall.
Jake, I couldn't believe it. It's an evil scientist who sends out a spy robot to spy on the main hero and then creates robots/androids to go defeat the hero.
And who is this evil villain? Well, it's Dr. Mashirito, who is based explicitly off of Toriyama's initial editor, Torishima.
Yeah, Mashirito Torishima.
And so these robots that he makes are called the Caramel Men for reasons that I've never seen explained.
And is this where Caramel Mama comes from? With the folks who do the guidebooks?
I don't know. I think it's a coincidence, but offhand, I've looked and I've never seen an explanation for why these robots are called Caramel Men. Mm-hmm. I probably should know that as the resident Dr. Slump expert, but right. I've come up with nothing.
Okay, that's fine. So that's basically where we're at. He sends out the robots and he builds a bunch and he makes numbers 1 through 9.
Yes, and in classic Toriyama style, there's a slight bit of discrepancy with the numbering system.
Yeah.
Where there's one, I believe it's the number 5, where there's 2 number 5s. The thing is with Dr. Slump, it doesn't have like long-running story arcs like with Dragon Ball.
No, it'll be like 2 or 3 or 4 chapters at most sometimes.
Yeah, so with Dr. Mashirito, he appears first in volume 6, and he's around for like 2-3 chapters, and then he goes away, and next he comes back just volumes later.
Yeah, it's a long time later.
Caramel Man number 2, and so that's the pattern throughout the rest of the series, is they just pop up periodically with a new robot to menace the gang.
Although we have to say, some of the robots, I mean, one's a mask.
Yeah.
He just puts on a mask and walks around.
Very loose definition here. I mean,
it is.
Another's just a car, basically.
Right, he's just him inside like an empty suit, looking out a view hole. I mean, some of these aren't really anything. Although we do get a pretty significant one in number 4.
Anyway, so yeah, the main one, I guess, is the 4th one, who he eventually takes to just copying Arale herself with those aforementioned spy robots. And Arale, of course, is the main character, the robot invented by the genius Senbei, the titular Dr. Slump. This Caramel Man number 4 is like her in every way except it's a male robot, to the extent that makes sense.
Right.
And it has the exact opposite personality. So while Arale is obsessed with poop and wild and crazy, this Caramel Man number 4 is very polite. And
he's a good boy.
Yeah. And he's so good, in fact, that he joins the good guys and betrays his creator, and he takes up the name Ubochaman.
Right. He kind of discovers that. I think he even asks people, it's like, are they good or are they bad? Oh, they're good? Wait, I've been had.
Yeah, Mashirito isn't really the cleverest person when it comes to disguising his true intentions.
No, he's like, they're bad. Go defeat them. And he goes and Obochaman goes and lives with Senbei and everyone for a while to kind of like infiltrate. But he's like, wait, everyone's so nice and helpful.
Yeah, so we could say he's like the equivalent of number 16. Almost.
He is in some ways, yeah.
Or no, I guess number 8, really, but...
Yeah, 8's probably closer. See, that's the thing, is this almost worked where you could be like, man, maybe Gero based his stuff off of Mashirito, but the numbers don't quite line up. I mean, because we do start with 8 in Dragon Ball. If he had started with number 10 and then with DBZ movies where we start then again with number 13, we almost had consistency.
But of course, okay, so that brings up the craziness with the numbers so after Obochaman, I'm pretty sure there's 2 number 5s, like separated by a period of months. And then later on, in the end, Mashirito turns himself into the final Caramel Man, number 9. Right. Except when he first appears... Like he's got the wrong number. I think when he first appears, he's number 8. And then midway through, Toriyama, and he has 8. He has the number written directly on his forehead. And so midway through, Toriyama's like, "Oh, a reader has informed me that there have actually been 9 Caramel Men so far. So from now on, you're Caramel Man number 9." And so he's just got 9. Like the original number's crossed out, and he's got 9 painted over it.
That's awesome. I mean, there was one volume in particular I was reading where at the end of every chapter, it was a recap of everything he's been doing wrong lately.
Yeah,
it's so good. It's so funny.
So I mean, basically, what we're getting at here is, of course, that Mashirito is Dr. Gero before there was a Dr. Gero.
Yeah, I mean, it's so many similarities. It's just one is funny and one's dead serious.
Pretty much. Although, I guess if you look at it, Dr. Gero can be kind of funny in his own way.
I suppose that's true.
And of course, in the end, Mashirito, he becomes number 9, this really goofy-looking robot, and he's defeated by Obochaman, so... Like Garo, he's killed by his own creation.
Exactly. Spoiler, Machirito
it doesn't matter.
destroyed. No, it doesn't. With this kind of series, it really doesn't matter. We have a couple little ones before we get to a couple big ones again. And there was a period of time where on Kanzenshuu EX, I had some really awesome contests. One was a series of 100 side-by-side images where one was absolutely a panel from Dragon Ball and one was absolutely not a panel from Dragon Ball. And this character was absolutely one that I used side by side.
Yeah, so this is Sunsukusun, Aralei's pseudo-Chinese friend who looks basically like Yamcha.
Yeah, he pretty much is.
I mean, more like early period Yamcha than later, just because of how Toriyama's art style changes. But
yeah, and Yamcha hairstyles and everything too. So
yeah. So he looks like short-haired Yamcha.
That's pretty much all there is to him, except he gets a lot stronger.
Yeah, it's kind of a more compared to Mashirito, it's kind of a more vague influence on Dragon Ball.
Right.
But I mean, it used to be a pretty big joke that Yamcha looked. I think it was actually Steve Simmons back in the day who, when this was brought up on the forums, someone on the forum asked how Yamcha got his scar. And Simmons said that he didn't want to be mistaken for Sukusun anymore.
That's a pretty good answer.
Yes. And okay, so the other thing about Sukusun is that towards the end of the manga, there's a story arc where he gets angry and becomes way stronger, which of course is a pattern reused in Dragon Ball fairly extensively. And also he becomes a tiger when girls touch him, but that is not reused in Dragon Ball.
All right, let's talk about God.
Yes, and not just any God. So speaking of reused character designs...
This one, it's the same thing.
Yeah, even Toriyama cannot deny that this is him being lazy. So in volume 17 of Dr. Slump, it's revealed that the Gachan, so Arale, she has she has this one friend called Gachan, who's like this little floating angel who eventually splits into two. So she has two friends called Gachans. And it's finally revealed that they are literally angels sent to Earth by God of the galaxy, who's not a purple catfish guy, but is in fact Kame Sennin riding on a weird plane thingy. This character looks exactly like Kame Sennin, only he doesn't have his sunglasses and he has a star in his forehead.
And he even has the staff. I mean, it's the same.
Well, it's like the classic wizard staff. Like all hermits, sennins in Japanese
old sages,
manga. Yeah. I don't know how you'd get a twig that has that knob at the end. Like, is the idea that they carve it like that, or is it...
I feel like that's gotta be the case, right? Like, you find something that maybe resembles that shape, and you keep that knobby part up top, and you just gotta shave it down.
I mean, you have to assume that some Japanese cosplayer knows exactly how to make these staffs.
Right. It has official-looking ones somewhere, right?
So in the Dragon Ball Tankobon Volume 2 Q&A, Toriyama, fan essentially calls Toriyama out on this, the resemblance between this god and Kame Sennin in Dragon Ball. And he says, yeah, I like the character design, so I reused it.
Speaking of reusing ideas, but this is kind of a shonen staple, and that's the tournament.
So in Dr. Slump, there are a number of different races and other competitions. These are, like most of the longer storylines are these sorts of things. Dr. Slump, usually one chapter, it's, the stories are just one chapter long, but every now and then there's longer stuff. And usually it's some kind of thing of a race or tournament. And so the big one, I guess, is the Penguin Village Grand Prix, which they first have in volume 8. And then the other one is at the very end of the series. It's actually, to the extent that Dr. Slump has a climax, it's the climax of the series.
Right.
In which Toriyama literally, like, it begins with Toriyama going to the mayor of Penguin Village and asking for ideas on how to end the series. And the mayor's like, have a big race, and then whoever wins gets to be the new mayor, because I want to leave this job.
It's kind of like Animal Crossing in that regard. I don't know if you played the most recent one.
No.
Mayor just ditches and you're mayor.
And so besides the besides the Grand Prix, there's also the who's the strongest in the world tournament.
All right, let's break it down. In Dragon Ball, it's Tenka Ichi Budokai. What is it in Dr. Slump?
In Dr. Slump, it's Sekai Ichi Suyoi wa Dare da Budokai.
Okay.
It's like it's this very, not slangy, but it's not like a formal title like Tenkaichi Budokai. It's like literally if you were saying the sentence, who is the strongest in the world?
It's more of a phrase or a sentence than it is a title. Got it.
Yeah. But yeah, the big thing though is they use Sekai Ichi instead of Tenkaichi, which essentially means the same thing. Strongest in the world. Anyway, so this is in volume 16, and obviously this is a more direct predecessor to the Tenkaichi Budokai because it's a martial arts tournament. The other big thing here is that in this tournament there is a Godzilla ripoff called the Daikaiju Rajigo. Rajigo being Godzilla, an anagram for Godzilla.
Rajigo Gojira. Got it.
So besides being a Godzilla ripoff, he's also kind of a direct predecessor to Giran in that he's a kaiju in a martial arts tournament. But even more so than that...
the Lanfan predecessor?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, there's another contestant who looks exactly like Lanfan and...
takes off her clothes.
Yeah, it's pretty much the exact same setup. But, okay, so with Rajigo, so we have Sunsuku-sun, who enters this tournament, and he beats an opponent, and then immediately after that, his next opponent is Rajigo, who just steps in and breathes fire all over him. Mm-hmm. And so Sunsuku-sun immediately, he gives up. It's like the Daffy Duck thing where he's covered in ash. He's and he's like, oh, I surrender. And so in DB episode 17, when they're introduced, Goku and Krillin, they're training, and Kami Sennin says, if you train hard, you can enter the Tenkaichi Budokai. And so there's an explanation of what this is, and so they show in the anime only, they have these scenes, like these hypothetical, here's what the tournament is like scenes. Mm-hmm. And so as part of that, they show this exact same sequence, a character who looks like Sunsuku-sun beats another character, and then gets breathed on by fire by a monster who looks like Godzilla.
Gotcha.
So essentially, they just reuse this bit from Dr. Slump for this anime. Not really filler, but
expansion. Yeah. Now, I don't remember if it was the same tournament, but as I was flipping through, I'm pretty sure I saw something where, I don't know if it was a robot or someone in a suit or something, they were expelling a smell and someone couldn't continue their fight because the smell was so bad.
Oh, darn it, yeah. What is that?
I don't remember, but that's very clearly... It's not referencing Dragon Ball, because Dragon Ball hadn't happened yet, but it made me think of Bacterian.
And so in Kanzenshuu 2, in his interview there, Toriyama says that these sorts of mini-events throughout Dr. Slump were his direct inspiration for the Tenkaichi Budokai in Dragon Ball, because at first, Dragon Ball, it wasn't really all that popular during its initial search for the Dragon Ball storyline.
Right.
And so after that wrapped up, Toriyama was thinking of ways to make it more popular. And so he's like, well, these tournament things, they worked pretty well in Dr. Slump. Maybe I should have something like that here too. And so that kind of defined the course of the rest of the series, really.
We have pretty much another 3 volumes of direct predecessor kind of things here. So I think we'll go in order, 15, 16, 17. Volume 15 is a real short one, but it's a made-up language.
Ah, yeah. A made-up language and another reused character design.
Okay.
Talking about spoilers and how they don't matter much in Dr. Slump, Senbei eventually gets married to his long-term crush Midori, who's Arare's teacher at school.
Right.
And so eventually they have a child. At the very end of Volume 14, it's revealed that Midori's pregnant, and so she starts to give birth at the end of Volume 14, and Toriyama is like, he says, oh, well, this is the end of the volume, so hang in there until the next volume, which is a joke that I have to assume was put in for the collected release.
Right, because it makes no sense week to week.
Yeah, because there was a similar thing like that with Dragon Ball where Great Saiyaman, when he appears, he goes to rescue Videl, and the robbers, they ask, who are you? And he says, when it ran in Jump, he says, I'll tell you next week. But in the collected version, and every subsequent version, he says, I'll tell you on the next page. They do that sometimes with these kind of jokes. Anyway, so in volume 15, Senbei and Midori's son Turbo is born. And at first, he's a regular baby, but then Senbei takes him out and is very negligent. He's a very negligent parent. And so, as often happens, his young child is run over by a passing UFO. And struck dead as it happens. But fortunately, these aliens have a kind of fancy medical device. They put the turbo in it. It cures him. And it also, because he's so young, it messes up his brain. And from then on, he's a super genius psychic baby who can talk and float around.
He floats around, yep. He just kind of like moves his fingers, if you remember that from Dragon Ball, where he puts the Dragon Radar back together.
He's essentially Dr. Manhattan as a baby.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
It's great.
So the Dragon Ball connection here is that the aliens, unlike pretty much every other alien, not only in Dr. Slump, but in Dragon Ball, they have their own language that they speak. And this language, like in the comics, so it has this made-up alien script, which looks pretty similar to Namekian as we see it in Dragon Ball. And also, like in early Dragon Ball, like when Bulma, in the town where they fight the Rabbit Gang, there's like random signs that are also in gibberish, and it looks pretty much the same as Namekian and this language. So
got it.
It's like Toriyama's default gibberish script. And the other big thing here, so the aliens themselves, they talk alien language, but they have a robot there to translate for them. In fact, this robot is here only to translate for the audience's benefit. It's this kind of fourth wall breaking thing. But this robot looks they reused this robot design. Well, first off, I should say this robot also appears in the final movie on the Discotek set. So in that movie, there's an entire city of robots, and so they've got this robot among them.
Great.
But
look forward to it.
Yes. And then in Dragon Ball Z, movie 6 with the big Gete star, they also have that robot on board.
Is that the little helper robot that drags everyone around?
Basically,
he's awesome.
The robot who, I guess he's sort of a guide robot. He, when they've got Yajirobe and everyone captured, and so they're going to dissect them and use them for fuel. And he explains very cheerfully this whole process to them.
He's awesome.
Yeah.
Probably the star of that movie.
Exactly. And he's in Dr. Slump, too. Like, this is where his career began.
All right. We're actually going back to a little bit of afterlife-y godly stuff here, and that's Enma, who is, well, he's Enma.
Yeah, so I know we got a question on the forums not too long ago from someone who wanted to know if, like, they had just started watching Yu Yu Hakusho. And of course, in Yu Yu Hakusho, there's also an Enma, a King Yama. And they wanted to know if this was a reference to the Enma in Dragon Ball. But of course, Enma is a recurring feature of Japanese manga and anime because he is the Buddhist judge of the dead. He originated in Hinduism as Yama, King Yama in Hinduism, and then from there he was kind of transferred to Buddhism, and with Buddhism he spread into China, and then from China he spread into Japan. And so with that kind of linguistic changeovers, he becomes Enma in Japanese.
Right, so he's a real character in so much as gods can be real.
He's one of the few mythological characters in Dragon Ball who's based on actual mythology instead of just, stuff Toriyama makes up. And so that is why he appears in Dr. Slump as well. And yeah, so in Volume 16, there's another one of those longer-ish storylines where Senbei dies by getting hit by a coconut that flies from a tree that Suku-sun punches as part of his kung fu training. And so he goes to the afterlife, and Arale just kind of accompanies him, and Enma-Daio's there, and he tries to send them all to hell after Arale gets poop on his face. So they're going to hell, which involves going on a pirate ship for some reason, a flying pirate ship. And fortunately, the people to hell are being conducted by one of Arale's old friends, Chival, the Chibi Devil.
Yes.
And so he helps them escape, and all's well that ends well. But so the main thing to note here is that this version of Enma that we see is a lot closer to the traditional Japanese portrayal of the character, where he's wearing these very old-fashioned oriental robes.
Yeah, you say that, but even still, he's big, he's at a desk, he's got the horned hat on.
Well, he's always big, and he always has horns or horned hat, and he's usually at some kind of desk.
I mean, that's the whole thing where all of these gods, it's a bureaucracy. They have jobs to do.
I mean, that's a thing that comes right from Chinese mythology, and it's one of the things that Journey to the West kind of parodies almost.
And it's so good. The official holy horse maintainer.
It's Toriyama kind of drawing directly from Oriental mythology and for lack of a better term, the kind of shared mythology of that whole region. And so anyway, in comparison to the version of Enma we see in Dragon Ball, who's wearing, he wears that purple suit, but otherwise they're pretty much the same because there's a fairly set idea of what this character should look like.
Right.
I mean, in Yu Yu Hakusho as well, he's giant, he's got the horns, he has a desk. Like Yu Yu Hakusho in general kind of borrows the entire afterlife as a bureaucracy with paperwork to fill. Pretty wholesome. It's kind of a common trope, really.
Right, and so it's less about being Dragon Ball, more about that's just what the idea of this character is.
Yes, but we mentioned it anyway.
Right. Well, we kind of have one more, and that's not quite the final volume, but as we lead up to the end of Dr. Slump, we get a very big bad guy that's kind of similar to last final big bad guy in Dragon Ball.
Yes, and as it happens, this character is also featured in one of the movies on the Discotek set.
Again, I say, look forward to it.
Astounding coincidence here. But so yeah, these like Dr. Slump movies, they kind of reuse stuff from the series. And so the fourth Dr. Slump movie is a very loose adaptation of this long by Dr. Slump standards storyline in Volume 17. And so part of this storyline is that Akane, one of Arare's friends, she's out on a date with Sunsuku-sun, and by an amazing coincidence, she's kidnapped by bad guys in a big zeppelin who are looking for this princess who happens to look exactly like her. And so Sunsuku-sun, he teams up with the princess and with Arale, and they go chase after these bad guys to get Akane back. And at the very end, the bad guys' secret weapon, they're from this like quasi-Middle Eastern country, and so of course their secret weapon is a genie trapped inside a teapot. This genie comes out and it looks fairly similar to Boo. It has the same outfit as Boo. And of course I should note the word here in Japanese is majin, like with Majin Buu. I mean, much more of a, we've had this debate in the past about how appropriate, whether or not it's appropriate in the case of Majin Buu to translate Majin as genie or jin.
Right.
And I mean, with Boo's kind of his own story, but like with this character, like it could not possibly be a more obvious genie character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Majin's one of those words that I think because it was adopted by the Funimation English dub, it's just one of those things like, I don't know, like Roshi, like Senzu, Majin, they're Japanese words and phrases. They're not names. Baba as well.
Yeah, like need to make a list of like all the characters whose titles are treated as names in English. Or...
I think I did that once and then no one cared and I got depressed and I moved on with my life.
Anyway, so with this character, I will say that with the Discotek set, the subtitles do call him a genie.
Makes sense.
Which, I mean, yeah, he grants wishes even. Well, he has magic. Anyway, so with this character, I don't think there's any debate that it's an appropriate translation. Anyway, so this guy, he comes out, he's got the same outfit as Boo. He's really strong. He defeats Arale and Gachan, which is unprecedented.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Arale, she can split the earth in half. She can do pretty much anything. The joke throughout the series is she can basically effortlessly defeat anything that comes her way. She's basically One Punch Man before there was a One Punch Man.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but sometimes there will be an enemy who can stand up to her, and one of them was two of the Carmel men actually give her a good fight. Like one of them actually beats her, and then so the pattern is that any enemy who Arale cannot defeat will be defeated by Gachan. But so this genie, he's the only character to defeat both Arale and Gachan, and so who should he be defeated by but Sunsuku-sun when he gets really angry and becomes really million times powerful? And Sunsuku-sun just kind of picks this guy up and throws him far off into the distance where he won't cause any more trouble. Means he should still be out there to this day, but...
Yeah, speaking of character fates, the Majin of Dr. Slump is out there somewhere.
Anyway, and so, I mean, it seems like a funny coincidence more so than anything that the final, more or less the final and most powerful enemy in Dr. Slump should also be a Majin who looks very similar to Boo.
Good stuff. So here's where we enter the shilling portion of the podcast. Discotek's Dr. Slump movie collection, its movies 1 through 5, comes out in about a week. It's officially due out July 29th. You can order it from a variety of places. Amazon helps us out more than other things, but it is a little cheaper on Right Stuff right now. Right Stuff has it for $19. Amazon's fluctuating a little bit. It's almost full retail. They have it for $28, but I have seen it down to around $23, $24 over there. So you got a little bit of time to decide where you're going to order it. I think as it has been described, this is kind of it. If this does well, there's a possibility for more. If this does not do well, that's pretty much it for Dr. Slump.
I mean, there's another 5+ movies to go. And of course, the main TV series, which is over 200 episodes. So a lot more stuff they could put out if there's interest.
Right. And I guess we can say this is based off of what is the Dragon Box equivalent. Dr. Slump did get that over in Japan, so it looks and sounds as good as Dr. Slump is going to look.
There's some really great animation, in particular the second movie, The Space Adventure.
Oh, people really love that one. I've seen that mentioned a lot leading up to the film, the movie releases here, yeah. It's
about twice as long as all the other movies on the set. It's like an hour or so, and it's this parody of all the big space epics that they had during the 80s. Really classic 80s animation there. Really great.
I am quite excited. I've got mine on pre-order. So Jake, with this in mind, this is coming out here, let's give one away.
Yay!
How do we want to do this? We haven't done a contest like this in quite some time. So let's hash it out in real time here on the show. We haven't really discussed it. What do you think would be an appropriate way to give away a copy of this DVD set?
Well, my initial idea was that we set up this site so that only people who buy the set can get news on the upcoming DBZ movie. But
send us proof of purchase.
Yeah, that's probably not feasible. So instead, we'll just give these away for free and maybe have people send in bad puns.
Maybe we'll do that. I like that. And it's going to require social media. It's just a good way for us to track that kind of thing. I'm going to require Twitter just because it's the easiest. It's free to sign up. If you only want to use it for this contest and nothing else, you can do that. Make yourself like a contest entry Twitter account. So let's do that. Come up with your best joke with a pun in it. It can be a Dragon Ball pun. It can be a Dr. Slump pun, just a very punny joke. Send it to us at Kanzenshuu, that is KANZENSHUU, and let's get a hashtag in there. What do you think it should be? Slump pun?
Yeah, why not?
That seems appropriate.
Yeah.
SLUMPUN, slump pun, hashtag SLUMPUN. So give us your best Dragon Ball and or Dr. Slump jokey pun. Tweet it at Kanzenshuu. We will wrap this up. Let's see. Let's do 2 weeks on this just so we can give some time for the sets to actually get out there. Or do you want to do it in a week so people know ahead of time if they don't have to buy it?
Yeah, a week.
Let's do that. Let's do it a week. So let's do it for Monday, which would be the day before it comes out, which I guess would be the 28th. All right, so get your entries in on Twitter by Monday, July 28th. I'm going to set it at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. We will cut it off at that point, and the four of us at Kanzenshuu will kind of go through the overall list, and we'll choose our favorite, and that person will get a free Dr. Slump movie set, courtesy of, well, mostly Brady, but Discotek as well. Jake, congrats on, I guess this is like your first real official industry work.
I guess so.
It's for reals now. You're doing real work, and Julian's accredited all the way up, so
yay.
We have real translators if anyone wants to ask us again.
If anyone should doubt our authority, then let them look no further than this poop joke-filled DVD set.
That's right. We are the authority on poop. I guess we're going to bring this episode to a close. This has been episode 366 of our podcast at Kanzenshuu. I have been Mike. That has been Jake. We implore you to purchase the Dr. Slump movies 1 through 5 set from Discotek on DVD. It's region 1, but it's 2014. You know what to do with regions and DVDs at this point. You can figure that out. Jake, what do you feel like is on the horizon for you at Kanzenshuu?
Assume I'm going to probably have to translate stuff about the new movie.
Yes, we're on such different time zone schedules right now. At any given time, we have a content manager and a translator awake. So it's pretty nice.
Of course, it's like I'm in a different time zone, but my schedule, like I work the night shift, so it like cancels out.
That's true. That's true. Well, I guess really, if you look at all those crossover times between Heath's work schedule as well, and then me at as normal as it can be and on an Eastern time zone schedule, and then Julian in Japan, it all somehow works out. So look forward to that. Jake, I guess I'll hit you up with news when Julian's asleep. That's that. Again, this has been 366, www.kanzenshuu, that is kanzenshuu.com. We will be crazy with movie news up until and probably a year after the movie releases. I actually tweeted out a photo earlier today because I want to do more with photos. I love good pictures. And I kind of grabbed down all of the main resources and reference materials that we used for Battle of Gods. You wouldn't believe just the random one-off magazines that had an interview with Nozawa here, a quote from Watanabe over here, something from Yamamuro over there. It's a lot, and we're about to enter that time all over again.
You have your own personal Shoko Nakagawa library now.
I can create a shrine. Man, do you think we're going to get any more of those, let's call them stunt castings again? Nakagawa, not so much. I mean, she's a real voice actress and singer and stuff, but the Kaori Matsumoto, you think we'll get something like that again, where they parade someone out just to do stuff?
I really hope not, but I wouldn't be surprised.
That's the kind of stuff we have to look forward to again, where it's kind of the most uninteresting information all alongside these groundbreaking, oh my God, this is how this happened. You think it's going to be the same though? Because I mean, we had so many things that Toriyama changed last time. Are we going to get that many interesting stories?
Well, only time will tell, but I mean, I do kind of hope it's a more streamlined process. I mean, my one hope for this movie is that it has a villain with a very clear, indisputable name pun.
I know, right?
Just right off the bat, like, I don't know, apple.
No, we've already had that.
Oh yeah, cranberry sauce, the super god of destruction.
We've already had cranberry before too.
Well, we've already had vodka. We've already had Coors Light, the super duper god of ultra destruction.
I love it.
New sponsor for the film.
That's right. You heard it here first, Kanzenshuu, giving you beer puns. We're done. Peace out, folks.